We have some fans mad, and rightfully mad, over some pretty graphic, lewd type of videos and pictures being posted. And then we have Jimin telling V to stop it, or that he's a guest, and people are getting upset about that. And then we have apparently the label posting something and not deleting it, and that being controversial. So hey dumplings, it's Dave Desai. Let's get into it. This first one cuts a bit deep for me. I'm not even going to pretend that it's something that doesn't upset me, because it involves people hating a specific journalist or someone who just talks about BTS and a bunch of different artists. A lot of the backlash that they're getting feels very similar to me, even though it doesn't always make the most sense. And I'm fighting against the grain. I know by fighting this or talking about it, people are going to be upset about it, because it's just widely believed and widely accepted that people who talk about BTS or journalists who talk about BTS are going to be hated. Now, there's two different types of backlash that journalists get who talk about BTS. There are either people who only talk about the positive things, they only talk about the accolades that BTS get, they only talk about the things that are good, and then there are journalists who talk about everything and do definitely still talk about the negative stuff. And because they're talking about the negative stuff, they're seen as haters. This is odd to me because it, at least in my opinion, feels like a form of censorship. So when an artist does something that is perceived as bad, it may not be bad, but it's just perceived as bad, the media or any people can't really talk about it, because then it would be considered hating on the boys. Now, the difference between what I do versus what maybe a journalist like for a big media company might do, I personally will always side with the boys. I'm always going to try to defend them, and I'm always going to try to find the positive side of something. I'm just always going to do that. If people are watching to the end, they know that I'm going to be doing that. And it really doesn't matter whether they decide to do something really awful, just the way that I have grown up with them, and just the way that I have been with them, just the way this channel wouldn't exist, my career wouldn't exist if it wasn't for these boys. Yeah, I owe them everything. I will defend them with my life. And those who have been watching for a long time, you know that to be true, regardless of what anyone else says. Now, this particular journalist, I don't know them very well, and I don't know exactly what they have talked about and what they have done. HYBE has reposted an article that they did, and this has caused controversy. Now, if you do a quick Google search, there's a lot of claims that talk about what rumors they've started and how every single bad thing or controversy has come from this particular journalist, allegedly. This is what people are saying. This is easy to think about and kind of debunk, and without even doing much research or looking into some of these claims, I can already tell you that it's probably not true, because of the fact that things are never this simple. It's not like just because one person said something, it would erupt into this big thing. You need a lot of people covering it and a lot of people to have a lot of different opinions about something. So a lot of that blame also falls upon the people who enjoy K-pop, who are believing these things, who are jumping on this conversation and saying, oh, I agree with this awful thing that's being written, because journalists can sit there and write horrible, horrible things, but we have to believe it in order for us to spread it and talk about it, and it becomes this bigger thing. I've said so since the beginning of this channel. We shouldn't believe everything that we see online. Don't even take what I'm saying as fully what it is, because I'm going to be wrong. I'm a human being. I am going to be wrong. However, from a lot of the stuff that people have been using as evidence, a lot of people will say this journalist is bad, and then they will put screenshots of articles and headlines of those alleged bad things. This is what I have a problem with, because a lot of people in the community will use things that don't make a lot of sense. They'll use a headline or something and then say this horrible thing, but when you read the headline, it's really not that bad. However, if someone were to ask, or whoever is using the platform comments, and to ask what is so bad about these things that they're showing, these screenshots, the reply 9 times out of 10 are going to be things like, oh, they're worse things, let me show you those worst things. Why don't you show those things to begin with? Don't use an example that is weak to back up your argument, and then when people ask you to show more worse things or stronger examples, you then show them. Just show them to begin with. And for me personally, it makes it harder for me to take some of these things more seriously. One of the examples that someone used to target this journalist and say that they're bad was a headline claiming that Jimin's father's fan meet was so controversial. Now, if I remember correctly, his fan meet was controversial. People were wondering why he was even doing a fan meet to begin with for an opening of his restaurant. Someone who is scrolling, who has a minute to think about what is being written, all they're going to think is, since when is talking about something controversial considered a hater? So I'm not really coming to defend the journalist or attack the journalist at all. I'm just saying that if there is evidence to target him or attack him, this is not something that should be shown, because it doesn't make those pieces of evidence get taken seriously. But knowing the community, there are going to be people who are not taking this and what I'm saying as constructive criticism on their behalf, but take it as an attack, and I'm not attacking them. And thus I'm going to be attacked back because they think that. And that's fine, that's the nature of the game. But there's a lot of things that people get upset about. I mean, recently there was this situation with V going to guest star on Jimin and JK's show. We know this. And for some reason, this caused a lot of controversy. There was a moment in which everyone was sitting down with each other, and V was talking about how he was upset that he wasn't initially invited to do the show. Jimin laughed and said that V was a guest, and that's why he wasn't initially invited, or maybe even why he wasn't meant to stay for a very long time. People had mixed opinions about this and didn't like this because they were saying that V appeared in more than one episode. He wasn't like he just made an appearance for like an hour or a few minutes or whatever. He made an appearance throughout multiple episodes. So at that point, they feel like he wasn't just a guest. So some people took this as Jimin was basically telling V to not be upset and to stop it. And I've seen other theories or things that have said where this also proves that Jimin and JK are not in a relationship together, because if V knew, and likely if they were together, V would know, then he would not want to guest in a show or would not want to go on vacation with them, because he would know he would probably be third wheeling. The next one that we're talking about today is extremely graphic, and a lot of the content and photos I can't really show. I'm debating just probably not putting any of that in here and just talking about it. However, when I do this, people don't tend to believe me, but you're just going to have to believe me because I don't think that those pictures should be in here. However, there are extremely graphic pictures online where it shows images of Jimin and JK being intimate, and it shows it as clear as if you were to watch an adult film. Some of these things are more drawings or animations, the others are more AI-generated pictures, which look a little bit more realistic. I know some of these things have existed before, but these are definitely more newer images that I'm talking about, and of course, every time these come up, I feel the need to talk about it because I think people aren't aware that this is considered sexual abuse. It is a form of that, and while this is the type of content that you could make for yourself and keep it for yourself, but then publicly putting it out and for it to get as many views and attention as it does tends to fall under SA. This is no different from the Taylor Swift AI stuff, where obviously I think anyone who thinks about it would be able to tell you that those images were fake, but it was probably most uncomfortable for Taylor because she was then seeing what people were thinking about her and wasn't exactly in the best light. People think that the members might have a reaction to this. JK might have a reaction to this, or Jimin might have something to say about this. And at the end of the day, I think they would be very uncomfortable with this. Now, the reason why I think they could be uncomfortable is several reasons. There's, of course, the obvious one that you're thinking of. I'm not going to address that, but just the idea of him not being gay, or like if he's not queer, if he's not a part of that community. To see something this raunchy and this graphic being produced by fans and trending online, it would not be good. First of all, I can guarantee you if you were to get a straight man to sit there and watch graphic male-on-male adult film, they would not be comfortable, let alone if one of these men in the film is you and you did not participate in doing that. Now, you're not only imagining yourself sleeping with a man, which might be uncomfortable to begin with, now you're visually seeing it. So if this content needs to be made, which it was inevitable that this content was going to be made for that, just given the amount of fan fiction and all that stuff that has flooded the internet, where it's basically graphically describing these types of actions. But then just keep it to yourself, or keep it behind a paywall. I guess I don't fully know where to put it and what the answer is, but the bottom line is, I know that if I was one of the BTS members, these would not be things that I would want to see. Even if he was in a relationship with his partner, it still doesn't make it better because you're drawing or describing moments that are meant to be intimate and private between two lovers. Let me know what you think. Make sure to check out Patreon for more videos. Link down below. Thanks. Just leave a comment right here. Love you. Bye.